From CRI Simple Numbers, this is Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast, a podcast for those who champion market growth and anchor the nation's economy, small businesses, and entrepreneurs.
All right. Hi there. Welcome to the Simple Numbers Profitability Playbook podcast. I probably should know what episode number it is, but I don't. But I don't know what we'll talk about. What is it? We've done a few. Oh, yeah, a few. Yeah. I just want to let everyone know that if I just start laughing on here, Brandon has a Fu Manchu mustache right now. And it's important to know that he did this for the football team. They shaved their heads. Brandon obviously is always got a shaved head. And but he did the mustache, and we get into now we can get into Tombstone now. I mean, yeah, we could probably do a segment on that. But hell's coming with Brandon right now, so be careful, Lee.
For those who don't know, I'm a volunteer coach. So I'm not just a random fan who decided to do that. You as a leader, you never ask someone to do what you won't do.
There it is.
And they decided, and you got these teenage boys with tons of hair, and they decided to shave it all off. And I said, all right, and they asked me what I was going to do. And I'm like, well, I can't shave off hair. I don't have any, but I'll go mustache.
Got Wyatt Earp here, like Maxson and Wyatt Earp during the podcast today. So, well, hey, should be a pretty good one today. We're going to talk about some lesson learned from the construction supply industry. We've done some sessions for them for a while. Got some good, met some great people, some great businesses, unique challenges, unique things going on. And by the way, a very fun group to work with, for all you out there in industries, I think you all are a fun group. I would challenge you to get to that level of fun if you're not there. Okay, Brandon, why don't you kick off?
Okay. One of the things we're always trying to do is take lessons from one industry and apply them to others. That's one of the good things. A lot of times we get asked, well, what industries do you guys specialize in? Well, the answer is all of them. We are at a specialty because we want to look at best practices. We want to look at what works in terms of results. And, most of the dynamics in business are universal. They transfer from one company, one industry to another. So, like Mike said, we've been fortunate. We've got to work with a lot of building supply companies. And I'm headed down to one of their roundtables this week that we're going to facilitate, which, by the way, if you're part of an industry or a trade group, touch base with us. We're more than happy to come talk to that industry, that trade group, whether it's just a normal presentation or, in a lot of cases, we get data from all the members. If it's a small group, especially, we'll get their data and we'll do some comparison stuff and kind of with the simple numbers modeling. So keep that in mind. Just reach out to us. But kind of back to the construction supply industry. If you look back at the history, and I'm going to go pretty short term here, you really from like 2019, 2020, 2021, 22, it was bonkers. I mean, it was humming. You had the cost of construction materials skyrocket right after COVID with supply chain issues. And the model for that industry is typically your gross margin percentage is somewhat fixed. Competitive forces kind of keep that for the most part in line. However, as revenue goes up for the cost of those materials, then obviously your gross margin dollars are going to go up. And on the flip side, when materials go down, because your margin percentage is somewhat flat, you're going to see gross margin dollars go down. And so it's one of those industries to where you have some control over pricing, but not a tremendous amount. And I would argue that generally speaking, the marketplace for most companies holds them accountable. There's very few to where you can just say, all right, we're going to add up all our costs to add 15% margin to that and roll, and you're good. Most are in what we would refer to as price-led costing, where your costing has to match your prices. And so in that environment, things are really good through 22, 23, and the latter part of 22 is you started to see it. As rates started going up, new projects slowed. You really felt that impact in 23, felt it in 24. Hopefully now as rates are going to decline somewhat in 25, you'll see that come back. So it's been a roller coaster for them. That said, a couple lessons that we've learned that the folks in that industry have learned and lived, and that I think can apply to your business. So the first one is the importance of relationships. And, that's an industry to where you've got builders, whether they're national builders or local builders, they're very loyal to their rep, not necessarily the company, but to the rep. The rep's the person they call when it's 4:30 and they were short on a material and they've got to get it out there. And, I got to have it first thing in the morning or the project stalls. And when that rep comes through for them, they get very loyal to them. So, marketing, we've talked about that several times on the podcast. Really difficult right now. Digital is a zoo. The consumer mindset has changed, but the one thing that has stayed a constant are relationships. So, kind of first thing I would throw out there is, what are you doing to strengthen relationships with your top 10 to 20 customers, clients? You need them to be loyal. If you're in an environment that has recurring revenue streams, you're most likely experiencing a lot of churn. Well, what are you doing to play offense? What are you doing to strengthen those relationships? So that's one lesson. The next one, and this applies to all businesses, is making sure, in particular, your direct labor and to some degree your management admin labor is flexible. Yes. You have seasonality in your business. This is a key. You can't hire for the peaks. You got to find a way to run the engine hot for 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And, in an environment to where you're seeing that your gross margin dollars are declining, you've got to be very quick to right size labor. So we'll go back to our 100 company model. And one of the trends that we have seen, generally speaking, is that companies have done a decent job with direct labor, making it flexible. So as demand goes up, you're kind of allowing labor to swell is a good way to. There might be some overtime in that, some additional compensation, but you're not really adding headcount. And as it goes down, you're really reducing hours. Whether it's, hey, we're going to have 6 or 7 hour work days, we're going to do 4-day work weeks, some of those kind of things. So they've done a good job with that. But the admin management labor, the labor efficiency with that one has just been steadily declining. And so you got to find a way to kind of extend that on out to that team. Because once again, in construction supply, you might be in a year-long downturn. You can't wait to see if the market's going to come back. And in the current environment to where margin dollars are really hard to come by, I'm cutting now and adding back later. And I know that sounds difficult to do because, yes, labor is tight, generally speaking, but we really don't have a lot of options. So you got to be pretty quick to make that happen as far as that goes. So, Mike, any other thoughts there? Because I know a lot of clients that you work with are in similar positions.
Yeah, the same things. I mean, really, it hasn't been, much different. I was just going to get back to the labor component. So, some of the hiring has been difficult on that side. The quality of it, there are people out there. This is what we talk about. We talk about business and people running it well and trying to do it right. There's a lot of people out there that have hired up a lot of the good labor on that side because of, hey, another company might make it flexible. And then you wonder, it's like, well, how are they getting through this, paying, that labor staff maybe all year round and not being flexible with their labor? So some of my people have run into that right there is like, hey, I'm trying to find quality people, but it's been tough sledding. And then when they get one, they're like, well, I got to hold on to it. And it's like, well, how do you structure everything from your processes, your procedures to, if you're running a lumber yard, how to all that stuff in there to try to be more efficient. I know that's low hanging fruit of an answer, but if you're in an industry, you got to flex labor. I mean, think of like a restaurant, right? Of where they got to flex labor all the time, find labor that's needs to be flexed or flexible with their schedules and when they work and the peaks and the valleys. They figure out a way to do it. And so you're going to have to figure out a way to do it as well, because you might have some parts of the country or some random time. Hey, we're not, we're in a downturn, and what labor staff can you keep on there that does it at the, the most affordable level?
One of the emerging trends that we're starting to see is that people who exited the workforce over the past 2 years to go retire some of them are starting to dip their toe back in the water and say, okay, I may not want to work 40 hours a week, but guess what? Everything's really expensive and I can only play golf or go fishing so many days a week. So how about I work 15, 20 hours? And so sometimes those, and the advantage there is that they're typically hardworking. You don't have to do a lot of training outside. Now, you don't want a highly technical role for many of those folks. But if it's just kind of, hey, taking care of things day in, day out, they're responsible, they're dependable, they do a good job. Sometimes that can be a little bit of a relief valve that you can put in place. And we're seeing more and more folks kind of come back into the market from an employment perspective that were retired. So that's a good hack there. The other thing to keep in mind is highest and best use with your admin management labor. If you're flexing that labor and with meaning, hey, we're going to run kind of skinny, there might be some things that just aren't as urgent as other things. And those are things I kind of put on the back burner. And I'll give you an example here. I am a massive fan of daily huddles with your team, monthly check-ins with your team. I think it's extremely important. I worked with a client that a couple months ago, they said, look, we're running skeleton crew for the remainder of the year. It may not be a lot, but I can give an hour, maybe 2 hours a month back to that team if I just delay on some of the check-ins and some of the meetings. And so it's a temporary move. They're going to go back to normal. But if you really have to get lean and mean, sometimes you got to look at, well, what's a luxury and what's a necessity with their time? So keep them in the highest and best use. Last thing here, and this is a great lesson for anyone who carries inventory. So you're in a volatile price market in a construction supply industry. Let's say you bought plywood at, I'll just make up a number here, $45 a sheet, and the market shifts and now plywood is selling for $30 a sheet. Well, there's two approaches. One approach is I'm just going to hang on to what I got because it's volatile. It'll probably come back. May work. The other approach is I'm going to go ahead and take the haircut now and get rid of it. And what the data shows is that 9 out of 10 times, your best move is go ahead and get rid of it. Go ahead and hope's not a good strategy because it drops to $30, $35 a sheet and you think it's going to come back up. And next thing you know, you got $25 a sheet plywood. And so if you don't move, go ahead and just take the loss, get it over with and move on to the next thing. Because it takes up storage space. It also, you've got capital invested in that inventory that you're not deploying elsewhere. So 9 out of 10 times, hey, it's obsolete or the price is falling on it. I'm going to move it. I'm going to get rid of it. I can't tell you that the folks who have tried to hold on to inventory using hope as a strategy, and it just gets worse. So, that's a kind of a lesson that I've heard many members that we work with that are part of that association say, I've learned it over time. It's, just go ahead and turn loose of it. So, once again, got inventory, good strategy there.
Hey, real quick, this is our first podcast since the election. And so, should we expect a bump now since we don't have to hear I'll wait till the election's over? What does it look like that we could potentially see for not only the construction industry, but for all industries here over the next few months? Is there going to be an election bump? Is it going to stay tight? What are we thinking?
Well, if you've been following this, we've been saying since probably July, August, that regardless of how the election turned out, you probably would see an emotional bump afterwards. Now, the reality for most businesses is that the election does not substantially impact their business. There's some that, yes, it definitely plays a role, but more so than not, what we have seen is that the election is a very convenient excuse to not do something. And so now with the timing, you've got some activity. I was talking to a guy last week or a week before last, actually right before the election. He said, hey, I've got a lot of projects that have been on hold for some time that are finally resurfacing and they're looking to move forward. So I think if you look at the timing too, relative to the holiday season, the consumer is a weird animal. It's not about what I have available to go spend. It's about what kind of mood am I in to spend the dollar? Because there's one thing about the U.S. consumer, they will spend more than what they have. If they're feeling good, it doesn't matter. They'll just keep spending. Feeling bad though, they'll hold off. So to answer the question, I'm seeing two groups right now. It's very early. You've got the group who was using the election excuse, who now changed the excuse to year end. I got to wait till the end of the year. I mean, what does changing of a calendar do? Does something magically happen I'm not aware of in January? Other than budgets resetting for some companies. So, hey, go ahead and let's get it going, because things could change also on the selling side or the service side in January. The prices may go up. So let's lock it in with new. So you got that group. And then you do have a group that, yes, they are moving forward. They know what it looks like. You've removed that element of uncertainty that if nothing else, like I said, is an emotional element. And they've got the capital. They're like, okay, we know what it's going to look like. Let's go ahead and move forward. So I do think you're going to see a bump. The question is, how significant and how long does it last? Because once again, an election does not change anything for the next 3, 4, 5, even potentially 6 months for most companies. More importantly is where interest rates go. That's really kind of the big thing that's gotten the economy kind of bottleneck as far as that part goes.
Well, I work with several contractors that do residential construction and things like that. So everything from their own crews to GCN and stuff like that. And a lot of their projects were on hold just for the sheer fact of waiting till the election. Straight up like that. That's simple. I mean, crazy.
Well, I think you will see a bump. Is it a 3-month bump, a 6-month bump, a 60-day bump? We don't know, but here's the thing to watch with that. Let's say we're right and you do see a pickup. Is it real, or is it just a false positive in terms of economic recovery? And back to what we said earlier about flexing labor. I want to flex labor during this time until I can tell for sure that it is real. So how do you know when it's real? Rule of thumb that we typically use is that my rolling 12 has 3 consecutive periods of gains, plus my outlook, pipeline, days to close, whatever you look at there, is improving. But you got to kind of look at both. What am I trending at? And then as I look ahead, what does it look? And if both of those look good, then I am slowly going to start to perhaps expand, grow, and reinvest stronger, add to the team. But you get that first hit, don't all of a sudden think everything's great. It's going to be sunshine and rainbows and unicorns here forward. I got to flex my labor up a little bit to confirm that this is indeed here to stay.
Good. Awesome.
All right. One last thing. So appreciate everybody listening to the podcast. Please share it. Subscribe to it. We want to see what we can do in terms of followers. We want to see what we can do in terms of listeners and how many of these folks listen to. So, if you're we talked about the construction industry. If you're in an industry, you like what you're hearing, shoot it to all your members. Shoot it to your friends, your other fellow entrepreneurs. We want to grow this because the more we get, the better. We've also been working on a guest lineup as we go into 2025 of having some new faces kind of come on, some new voices, experts, and kind of get their take on things.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, hey, appreciate you joining us. Like I said, we're doing these weekly now. As best we can. We try weekly and try to make them short and sweet and to the point on various topics. Also, too, if you want to, hear something, have us talk about something in business you're interested in, throw it to us in an email or over to us on LinkedIn, and we'd be happy to talk about it. But for Brandon, I'm Mike. You all have a great week.
See ya.
If you want to know more about driving sustainable profitability for your business or are interested in learning more about CRI Simple Numbers, please visit our website at simplenumberscri.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers podcast. You can subscribe to Profitability Playbook on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. If you liked what you heard today, please leave us a review. The views expressed on Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers podcast, are those of the presenter and moderator and do not necessarily reflect the views of CRI Simple Numbers or the CRI family of companies. This podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional advice received directly. Consult with your CRI Simple Numbers advisor or another trusted professional if you have questions about your specific situation.